sitting over there listening and feeling the power and the spaciousness of infinitely. Did you write that? Yeah. They said, yeah, it's just what we do. That was beautiful. Thank you. You know, the world is an interesting place right now, yes? You know our definition of interesting? I don't know if you do or not. Our definition of interesting, we learned it in seminary. The word interesting means, God help us through this one. Did you ever have an interesting day? Did you have an interesting week, perhaps? We were driving in this morning and coming in a little bit later, and it was like kind of, very cool, sort of, and weird, and all of those things that are kind of up and around. And I said, man, wait a minute. When was last week? When was last week? And we were talking about what the talk was, and we were talking about the music, and we were talking about our daughters were here, and our grandkids. It's like, doesn't that feel like a month ago? I mean, it just like, time is weird, right? So the planet is weird. So can we just have it? Yeah, just is. Yeah, it's just weird. So God was a little concerned looking down at planet Earth recently. He kept saying, like, weird. What is going on down there? He was concerned about the drama and the trauma. I mean, think about it. We had the earthquakes in Nepal. We had our friend, remember we talked to you about Maru's friend who was on Mount Everest, she's home. There was another local gal who was also rescued from Mount Everest, she's home. But think of all the lives and all the people who were touched by people who didn't get to come home. We have whatever as we want to call it in Baltimore, and all over the world. It's like we are a crazy species, yes? If you feel like you are a part of the crazy, just raise your hand. Oh, wait a minute. So God decided to send an angel down to earth to really check it out. And she sent the best angel of all time. And she said, go down and spend some time and then come back and tell me. So this angel went down and spent a week just moving around the planet, just moving in and out of the drama and the trauma and the situations and the people. And that angel went back up to God and they said, well, God, it is bad. It is like 95% bad and like 5% good. And God said, oh, this is not good. So she decided to send another angel down. So this time, she sent another angel from a different department to get a totally different point of view, right? The angel came down and spent time and went back and said, God, it is bad down there. It is like 95% bad and like 5% good. And God said, oh my God, this is not good. I wonder if God said, oh my God. So she decided, I've got to do something. So I got to just make sure that this is really real. So I'm going to go ahead and send an email to the 5% that are good. Do you know what the email said? 2 of us got them. Rob got one, I didn't get one. I'm like, what's up with that? I thought it was good. Or maybe you got the other one that's good that comes from God periodically. It has variations, but the one I got recently said, oh, my dear beloved child, why do you worry so? Remember, I've got this. Love God. Maybe that was the email, right? Maybe that was the one the 5% of us got, or the 95% of us didn't get. So we just finished 31 people from Unity of Dallas. 31 of us finished Prosperity Plus last week. 31, that's pretty amazing. That's like, great number. 31 of us made a commitment to stepping up and putting into practice the spiritual laws of abundance on the universe. And did we succeed? Two of us succeeded. We had a fabulous time. Cheryl and I had a fabulous time. But we learned so much. The program that we taught was Mary Morrissey's Prosperity Plus, a new way of living. And when we checked out of the class that Tuesday night, when we checked out and we kind of went around the room and we said, what's changed? Almost to a person, something changed. Because what happens when we take on a program like that is we lift our consciousness. We are exposed to new ideas, even if they're the same ideas we've heard before, but we come in with a beginner mind. We come in with, what can I hear and see and take from this program like I've never done before? And it hugely, in a very positive way, impacted this ministry, because we were tithing not only 10% of all the money we received, and we got some really cool, unexpected money stories out of the program, but we were also became generous of heart. We became servants, whether we served in this ministry or we served somewhere else. Our commitment was to volunteer 4 hours a week. That's a pretty big chunk if you go 4 hours a week. And most people did it. We became committed to the tools and the practices. We cleared out our closets and our garages, or some of us at least our wallets. We have to start somewhere. Some of us our purses. We began a process of clearing out, of opening our space in our hearts, in our lives, in our minds, in our consciousness. And one of the phrases that I loved that popped out this time I took this course is Mary says, comes out of the blue. Comes out of the blue. I'm thinking, out of the blue, what is that? Well, you know, I said last summer sometime, oh, we bought this house. It's an amazing house. It's on the water. It's beautiful. I can't believe it. It totally came out of the blue. Rob says, what do you mean out of the blue? I manifested this. I've been working hard on this. I've been looking and searching and praying and preparing, and I've done the work. And I'm like, we came out of the blue. Right, honey? Same thing with the car I got last month. It came out of the blue. Maru, who's not here today, or maybe she's in the back somewhere, she's got this great web TV show, and she teaches and she's coach, and she's like telling all these out of the blue stories. It's a phrase that's coming out of her mouth all the time. And the most recent one she gave me permission to say is they were in a lease situation, and the lease ended last Thursday, and they needed to move, right? Well, they didn't know where to go, and their friends and their family are like, you've got to find something, you've got to take action on this. And she's like, no, that's not perfect, that's okay, but it's not really what we're wanting. And then, together, they stumbled on this place. It was like, it's perfect. And so they put in their application. Well, he's a full-time student, and she's self-employed, so you might know how that might go in today's world in the application process. And so the day came, their day to move, April 30th, time to be out. Now, they did extend. Still hadn't heard about this place. It'd been 2 weeks. Still hadn't heard. They're just going about their lives. They are in this practice of trusting God. She was in Prosperity Plus. They're in this practice of absolutely trusting the universe and only going for that which they know there is theirs. That which is theirs. And that morning, bright and early in the morning, they got the call. Guess what? They got the house out of the blue. So the question comes, what is the blue? Now, if I hadn't told the Maru story, you could have said his name is Rob and he's sitting down here, right? But he's not the blue for everybody. So what's the blue? What is this place? When we say it comes out of the blue, what do we even mean? Where is the blue? I think that was my favorite line of Mary's, the whole course. Where is this blue? So I've been playing with it and working with it. We studied a book called The Science of Getting Rich, many forms of this book, Wallace Wattles. This is the ones I happen to own. He says this. This is written, by the way, in 1910. He says, excuse me. He says, there is a thinking stuff, scientific term, by the way, from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man was written in 1910. Man, woman, humanity, person can form things in thought, and by impressing the thought upon formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about, to be created. I love this thinking stuff. Where is the blue? It is the thinking stuff. The things that you think about are the things that you're going to experience in your life. So just take a note and notice what you think about. Do you think about the riots? Do you think about the devastation? Do you think about the pain in your body? Do you think about the lack of funds in your checking account? Do you think about the places in your life that don't work? Or do you think about that which you most desire? Not the lack of that which you most desire, which is where we usually go. So thinking about the thinking stuff, practicing, playing in this idea of impressing the thinking stuff. Now, Wallace Wattles was a contemporary of Charles Fillmore, so if you go back and read Charles Fillmore, it's the same. It's really, really similar, somewhere between Charles Fillmore in the early 1900s and today in The Secret. We've got it mixed up a little bit. But this is what's really awesome. I was listening to Greg Braden yesterday. Greg Braden is an amazing scientist turned spiritual, very, very intellectual. But what he's done over the last 20 years or so since I've known him, I know him. I've met him, but since I've known him and watched him and sort of followed him loosely, is he's a man that has so landed in his heart. He has so landed in this place. He's very involved in HeartMath, and he's still very involved in the scientific community. But in his talk that I was watching yesterday, he was talking about the new science. Now, the new science isn't yet in the textbooks, but it's published. It's in the published realm. It takes about 8 or 10 more years to actually filter all the way down. I know I talked to somebody yesterday, right, who gets to go be with Greg Braden in Sedona next month. Sometime soon, yeah, a couple hands waving over there. Yeah, so that'll be really awesome. But he talks about that what is very scientific now is that they're talking about a field. They're talking about a vibrational place, an actual physical field from which all things become manifest. It's a field of energy that underlies all things. It's the field of energy in which we are interconnected. Now, when we talk about there's only one presence and one power in the universe, we call it God. We could also call it this vibrational field. Scientists call it the quantum field. But what they're learning, what they're discovering, and what they're proving is what ancient traditions, including religions and spiritual traditions for 5,000 years, is relatively new. The whole idea of science is only about 300 years old. But they're proving the same things. They're saying the same things. So here's what he says. He says that we're all connected, and we're only beginning to understand what that means. What that stuff is that connects us. Think back to Wallace Wattles in 1910, thinking stuff. Greg Braden, scientist, stuff. What is that stuff? Can you begin to imagine that it's actually palpable as it penetrates and permeates the interspaces of the universe? That means you and me. That means this very room. He says that babies are born knowing the language of this vibrational field. It's only as we grow up and learn the language of humanity, the language called English or whatever language you've learned, that we begin to forget. The language is the language of the heart. But it goes a step further. The language of this field, of this thinking stuff, is the language of the feeling of the heart. So you see how we've gone from a mental science to a science, a vibrational science, how we've moved from our thinking mind into our heart, and now we're taking a step even deeper into the feeling of the heart. He said the way to access this vibrational field, this place that I'm going to call blue, the way to access the blue is to feel from the depths of your heart the thing that you most desire already done. For some of us, that's not new, but feel it in a new way. The thing that you most desire, feel it in your heart as already done. Already done. I already have that new home. I already have all the abundance I need. I already am that great vision that I have of myself. I already be that in the world. It was a lot of the work that we did in Prosperity Plus was beginning to identify our vision, not as outside of ourselves, but from revealing it from the depths of our being, recognizing it, bringing it forth. And part of that homework was, okay, if you were already that, who would you be being and what would you be doing in the world? And you see what happens? It's like in the language of the feeling of the heart, it communicates into this thinking stuff, that which we most desire. When we do that, it is impossible for that which we most desire to become manifest in our lives. Okay, so breathe into that for a moment. Take a breath. Juxtaposed with, oh, I so want to do that. I so want to take that global trip around the world. I just will want to, but I'll probably never be able to because yada, yada, yada. Whatever, right? Pick your thing, right? Oh. Okay, it's better to move. Oh, I'm a global traveler. But you feel the difference when I do that, right? You feel the difference. Oh, I am a global traveler. I'm taking a trip around the world. It's on my calendar. I know I'm going. It's like that creates the energy, the vibration to allow it to happen versus let's go back to the other. Oh, someday I really want to go around the world. Right? Most of us don't show that face, but we live in that space. You know what I'm talking about? The rest of you know what I'm talking about. It's not just the front corner. That's the blue. Did that get a little too personal? It's not just the far back corner. So then we go back to Scripture. Okay, it'll all tie together. Just stick with me here, okay? In Elijah was one of the prophets. So in the book of 1 Kings, and Elijah was called by God to prophecy to the people. Basically, obey God and you will be blessed. If you keep disobeying God, you're going to keep being cursed. And here's what's going to happen. And he had a moment and he went, whoa, I'm so out of here. Did you ever have a moment? It says, whoa, I am so out of here. Okay. So Elijah has gone up to a cave and he says, not Elijah, God says, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Feel the anticipation, the expectancy. Now there was a great wind so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here?" That sound of sheer silence, also known as the blue. That thinking stuff, that vibrational field is the key to living life in oneness, to living life fully fulfilled, to coming to know the one presence and the one power we call God. God is found not out there, but right within, in that sound of sheer silence, in that thinking stuff that permeates and penetrates and fills the inner spaces of the world. It's the stuff that holds it all together. Greg Braden calls it the quantum blackboard. The quantum blackboard from which we create using all of our artistic utensils. He also says this: be aware of what you feel, because it's going to show up in your life very quickly. Be aware of what you feel, because it's going to show up in your life. You can choose how you feel. It takes practice, it takes awareness, it takes consciousness. There's a story, we actually ended Prosperity Plus with a version of this story, and it's the story of a monastery way back, long time ago in the, let's see, it probably doesn't matter when it was, but the very beginning of the 20th century. And it was at one day vitally alive. It had tons of monks. It had lots of initiates. It had lots of visitors. It had beautiful gardens and grounds, and people came from miles. It was a destination place, and people came. But over the course of time, it fell into decline. The grounds fell apart. Hedges were overgrown. The lawns weren't taken care of. Most of the monks died off. The visitors quit coming. At this point in time, there were only 5 monks left. One was the abbot, and the other 4 were the monks. There were 5 of them taking care of this huge, expansive monastery, and they were all elderly. They were all, well, let me rephrase. They weren't elderly, but they were all over 70. Did I get out of that? Okay, phew, that was close. They were all over 70, and they just didn't know what to do. They were worried, they were concerned, they were like, what's gone wrong? What happened? Has God deserted us? And on and on and on. And yet over in the far woods, every now and again they could feel a presence. And so they discovered that there was a rabbi who came periodically to a little cottage to pray. And they said, you know what? The abbot said, you know what? Next time we feel that presence, I'm going to go on a journey. I'm going to go see if I can find him and ask for his support and ask him what we should do. So they felt the presence. Of course, they're very astute in their prayer and their consciousness. And the abbot went out on a journey, and he went and he found the hut, and he knocked, and he said, I am so sorry to disturb your quiet time, but we have felt your presence here over the years, and I have a favor. Could you help us? And the rabbi said, sure, come on in. And he poured a cup of tea, and they shared a cup of tea, and they said, you know, we're in decline, and the people aren't coming, and we don't know what to do. And the rabbi said, oh, oy vey, me too. And the spirit's gone from the spirit people, and we don't know what to do. And everything, it's like that out there in the world too. I don't know what to tell you. And they drank their tea, and they cried, and they held each other, and they supported each other, and like just saying, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. You all have a friend like that. Yeah, me too. And he said, well, I'm so sorry I haven't been able to help you. And the abbot said, well, I guess I should be getting back, but thank you so much for the time. It's just helped my heart so much to be with you and to share time. And he was walking out the door and down the path, and the rabbi called after him. He said, I'm so sorry I couldn't help you more, but I have one last thing. He says, one of you is the Messiah. And the abbot goes, what? Like, what? What does that even mean? Like, out of the blue, right? One of you is the Messiah. And he went back, and the monks were like, what happened? What happened? Does he have a solution? Do we have a fix? Can we do it? Yes. And he said, no, he didn't, and he told him the story, and he said, but he said the strangest thing as I was leaving. I've been contemplating it, rolling it in my mind and my heart. I don't know what to make of it. He said, one of us is the Messiah. And they look at each other and they go, one of us? Like, you guys? Like, one of us? I can't even imagine. So they all took it into their prayer time, and they took it into their work, and they began to change. They began to think about it. They began to go, wait a minute. If one of us is the Messiah, it must be the abbot. It must be. You know, he's been here the longest. He leads us. He's been our spiritual leader for more than a generation. It must be him. Oh, but wait, what if he could have meant Brother Thomas, because Brother Thomas is one of the kindest men on the planet. He's a man of light. It's probably Brother Thomas. It probably is. Well, wait a minute. Well, it couldn't be Brother Eldridge because he's cranky. But you know what? Think about that. He's cranky, but when he does speak, he's often right. He has a wisdom about him. And they go around and they think about, well, what about Brother Philip? Well, Philip is kind of passive. He's kind of really a nobody. And yet, on the other hand, he's always there when you need him. He just knows when to show up. Oh, but wait a minute. Could it be me? How could it be me? What if it was me? And what happened over the course of time is they began to treat each other differently. They began to treat themselves differently. They became kinder. They became more compassionate. They became more present to whoever was in front of them. And one day, not that long later, not that long, they looked out, and out in the grounds with this huge long grass and overgrown hedges and overgrown bushes sat a young family having a picnic. I thought, well, that's curious. And pretty soon after that, another family came. And they had another picnic, and then pretty soon after that, somebody came and mowed the yard. And then pretty soon after that, somebody came and cut the hedges. And pretty soon after that, there were people coming every weekend. And pretty soon after that, there was a young man who knocked on the door. And he said, I have no idea what you're doing here, but I would love to study with you. Could I come? And they had an initiate. And then they had another, and then they had another, and then they had a monastery full of monks. And then they beautified their grounds, and they beautified their building, but most of all, they beautified their hearts. They beautified their consciousness. They moved their awareness out of the issues and the challenges and the despair and the, oh my gosh, what happened, into the blue, into the thinking stuff, into the feeling of the heart that says, wait a minute, what if I am the Messiah? What if you are the Messiah? What if you are the Messiah? What if that guy that just gets me is the Messiah? What if that guy in the traffic, you know that one? What if he's the Messiah? What if we are the Messiah? What if we're here to be the Messiah? What if we are here to change not only our own lives and our ministry, but the whole world? Those things that come out of the blue often take a lot of effort. Those unexpected things take a lot of planning and a lot of consciousness to show up out of the blue. So I leave you with this thought. What if one of you is the Messiah? God bless you.